Recording in progress.
Let me do a quick sound check. This is Amit here.
I can hear you, Manager Wani.
Got it. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. Today is May 15th and it is 2 o'clock. As a quorum of the committee is in attendance, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Central Health Ad Hoc Succession Committee. As a reminder, some of our committee members may be also participating by video conference. Hello, Amit. So the staff will be managing video and audio feeds of all participants closely to make sure we have a legally compliant meeting at all times. And the first item of business is public communication. Members of the public who wish to make comments virtually during the public communication portion of the meeting must have registered with Central Health via the online form or by telephone no later than 12:30 p.m. today. Yesenia, did anyone register to make comments? Did we have anyone register to make comments? Okay. All right, so we'll now proceed to the committee agenda. So, members, we have one item today and several aspects of it to talk through. It's a discussion, it's our first meeting for this committee, and it's a discussion of the processes and timelines for selection of a Central Health CEO, including the public input process. So what you have, and what was sent out earlier, is two documents that we can talk through today to get feedback on. We're not posted for action today, we're posted for discussion. And then there's a third item that we will take into closed session after we complete these two. So you have in front of you a draft high-level timeline, so I'm going to talk through that first, and then see if anybody has any questions or comments they want to make about it. And then I'll talk through the draft scope of work elements for a search firm. We can see if anybody has any comments or questions or anything they want to say about that. So let me just say first, on the draft high-level timeline, the purpose of this document is to kind of lay out for us, so we can start thinking about it, the process and the timelines. It is intended just as a beginning point for discussion, and it's a high level. It doesn't include every single step, and I would expect that we would probably need to update it based on any guidance we receive from a search firm. So you can see I've organized it in 3 steps. The first step is the actual search firm solicitation. And let me also say I have timelines that we may find are overly optimistic. I don't know. They're here with our best thinking at this point. I think a search firm can probably give us, more realistic if these are not. But anyway, the search firm solicitation through May and June, which basically involves our input on the scope of work, which that's the other document. We'll get to that in a minute. Then the Central Health will issue the RFP, and we'll start the solicitation for a search firm. And then the board will approve the search firm selection based on our subcommittee's recommendation. So that's the major steps involved in that first step, major parts. Step 2 is the actual search firm process, which I'm suggesting, July to December. And there's about 5 major portions of that, or parts of that I wanted to highlight. First is community and stakeholder input on the CEO desired values and competencies. So what I'm suggesting is that at least at the beginning, this is not necessarily the only stakeholder input, but at the beginning, we ask stakeholders what they want to see in a CEO, what competencies they're looking for. We will need to dig into more detail about what exactly that looks like. What's the mechanisms for community and stakeholder groups? Is that surveys, websites, submissions, advisory group meetings, whatever. We'll have to get into the details there. But I wanted to mark that and just confirm with everyone today that that's a step that you all think is appropriate and important. Second thing is we will solicit the committee, we will solicit the search firm guidance on processes, so that, that's the whole idea of a search firm. They bring expertise to the table and will tell us what they're thinking in terms of processes. We will also, as a subcommittee, need to vet the candidate pool. So that's an item we'll need to talk about. We'll need to understand if the board is comfortable and delegating to us to actually vet the candidate pool. Then my thought is that we would invite the full board to participate in the candidate interviews. In other words, we would first vet the candidate pool to bring it down to an appropriate number of candidate interviews. And then we would interview, but we would also invite the full board to participate in interviews. And then we may have additional stakeholder processes to determine. I understand that in the last time that a CEO was selected, there was some type of stakeholder process for a finalist. So we'll need to talk about how we might want to do that. Then the step 3 is the item that I want to take into closed session today. And that's with regard to an acting CEO or acting administrator. My thought is that our timeline for making a determination about whether or not we need that is going to be sometime between August or September. And so we can talk about in closed session what that looks like. And then finally, our goal is selection of a CEO or naming an acting by the fall of 2023 with sufficient transition time. And we want to do everything we can to respect our current CEO's timeline, which I believe is through the end of December. So So with that said, before I turn to the scope of work, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, changes, or anything on this draft timeline? Anybody have any comments? Thank you, Manager Jones. I see that you've joined us also.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Chair Bell?
I think the timeline is great, and I think you're right in that we'll probably need some input from the search firm to whether it's realistic or not. But I'm glad that we will consider both. So if we need an acting, hopefully we can deliberate about that and sort of have that packaged away. So if our timeline deteriorates, we've already discussed the acting issue, and so we can go back to it and appoint if our timeline doesn't allow us to bring someone on before our current CEO. So I think it's great, and I don't see a need to make any other comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We will we'll proceed in this way. So now I'm going to turn to the scope of work. I'm not seeing any comments from any of our folks online, right? No?
Agreed.
Okay. I'm sorry. What did you say?
I'm having a problem with my video. Can you
Oh,
hear
okay.
me?
Thank you. I'm glad we recognize that you're online. Okay.
Yeah, I'm online, but for some reason or another, my screen is not coming on. I can hear you, I can see you, but you apparently can't see me.
Okay. Okay. Well, just let us know.
Hopefully that will not be a problem.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to proceed now to the second part of what we wanted to talk about here, and that's the scope of work elements. And I'm going to talk through them and try to hit the high points, and because I know you haven't, these were sent out this morning, so I know you haven't had a lot of time to think about them. But this is a draft scope of work elements for the search firm. So it's intended to lay out the responsibilities of the search firm, and what they'll be assisting us with. So if the first part talks about, just hits the high points about how the search firm will work with our committee. So we'll be working together between the committee and the search firm on developing the position announcement, on developing and implementing a recruitment plan, which includes advertising, posting. I wanted to be sure, and we had written here, intentionally committing to equity and diversity, proactively seeking out qualified candidates of all backgrounds. So we want to be sure our search firm understands that that's a key value for us. Also, the search firm will be working with our committee on recommending top candidates for interview and selection, reference checking, and phone interviews. So phone interviews relating to the reference checking. And any initial kinds of questions we might want the search firm to do for purposes of helping us vet the candidates we want to interview. They can help us also with developing questions for interviews, and then also notifying candidates who've been eliminated from further consideration. So that's a high-level listing of how we can work, how this committee can work with the search firm. So then the rest of these are divided into activities pre-recruitment, the recruitment phase itself, and then post-recruitment. So on pre-recruitment, we've got assistance in working with us on defining and developing a written position description. And that's the item that I mentioned earlier that we talked about developing our process for stakeholder input on. Then, and that will include things like required information regarding our ideal candidates, developing the actual written candidate profile. Then that fourth item that's going to be really important for us to understand and will play into our timeline is evaluating the competitive strength and weaknesses of the national market. You know, in other words, what have we got? You know, in terms of a potential for candidates. That's not an area I'm familiar with. I don't know, others may be, but that'll be important to hear from them. And then we want to deliberately talk about a strategy designed to attract that diverse pool I mentioned earlier. So that will probably need some conversation with the search firm to make sure that the way in which they reach out will help us be sure we're attracting a diverse pool. And then we'll work with them on marketing and advertisements and that sort of thing. So I'm going to stop before I go through the whole thing. Do y'all have any questions or comments on the first two parts of this pre-recordment? Yes, Dr. Beck.
And I know this is probably a little bit too detailed, but as we develop a candidate profile, is there going to be a way to gather input from existing staff
Yeah, that's a
to sort of understand what they need in a leader? And so I think that input would sort of help us be able to narrow some of the characteristics that we look at as we go forward.
I think that's a good addition to this list.
Okay. Thank you.
I see others agree. This, and I didn't say this before, but this scope of work is intended to be attached to the RFP.
Sure.
So we want to make sure the detail's good because it's telling the search firm what we expect them to do.
Okay.
So, and it would seem to me that reaching out to key staff and developing that process for getting input from the staff would be something the search firm would help. Okay. All right. So we'll add that. Any other questions or comments?
I
Thank you,
do.
Zamora.
We'll get. Let's take Dr. Zamora Lab first, and then we'll take other folks.
Everybody else, I'm sitting there, I'm okay.
You're good? Okay. Well, then, who do we have?
Manager Jones.
Manager Jones.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. I received the document, the agenda, and the another document. I didn't receive this document here. Was this sent out?
It was sent out. Both
So-
of these documents were sent out this morning.
Both documents were sent out this morning. However, the search firm document was only sent to the committee. So that's
okay.
why it's being shown on the screen.
Oh, okay. Can you go ahead and send that to everyone? My apologies,
can.
Manager Jones. We had a little. I wasn't clear in asking that be sent to everybody. So it's on the screen, but we're going to go ahead and send it to you also.
Okay, no, it's helpful that it's on the screen. I appreciate that. I was just making sure I didn't miss something else, perhaps. So
No. Thanks for pointing that out. It's and I also want to let people know that in the future we'll try to get documents out before the day of, or the morning of. So, any other thoughts or questions?
I do.
Manager-
Cynthia Valdez.
Okay, just a minute, Manager Valadez. Manager Jones, did you finish your thought?
yes, that's it for right now. Thank you.
Okay, Manager Valadez.
It's just that I don't have any on my screen. There's no way for me to raise my hand, and you can't see me. And I don't have a thing that says raise hand.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just speaking up is fine.
So I'm going to have to speak up, and I apologize for that. I did not receive this, and I thank you, Shannon Jones, Manager Jones, for bringing that up, because I don't want us to go backwards in how board members do not or do receive based on whether or not they're part of a committee. I think every board member is entitled to have a copy of everything that's sent out. So thank you for agreeing to do that, Chair.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that happens sooner in the future.
One more thing.
Yes?
With respect to the search firm, I'd like to know whether or not they have had any search firm. I'd like to make it a point that we can know whether or not they have had any success in doing this kind of work where they're headhunting specifically for with experience in diverse population and targeted populations of the indigent, and have experience and success in placing candidates that have actually worked in the demographic that we are considering hiring. It's
Okay.
one thing to say we have done this as a candidate, but it's a different thing to show that you have successfully done this with this demographic. So that's one thing that I think is should be made very clear to prospective candidates.
Okay, thank you. That's a good addition. Other comments? Dr. Zamora? Manager Zamora?
Just a comment. You know, obviously our CEO last time rose to the top, and he was the best of the best of the best. But we did get some good candidates throughout the country. We had lots and lots of candidates. Chair Valdez, Manager Valdez wasn't on the selection committee. We had some very talented, diverse people who came in for interviews. So we'll get the best of the best, just like we got our last CEO.
It's great, thank you. So there was a good national pool.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Chair,
Yes.
I just like to piggyback off of what Manager Valadez said, and also what Dr. Zamora said.
Okay.
Not only that they have presented in their resume or in their beat or whatever that they have these cultural and demonstrated activities, but that they can actually present examples of where they've done this at, so that we can be able to look at them if we need to, independent of what they're saying. That's been my experience. A lot of people can say or pontificate about what they've done and what they can do, but it'd be helpful if we could maybe also independently look at and follow up with that.
Okay. Okay, I'm making a note of all these things. Okay. All right, let's go. Manager Brinson? Mm-hmm.
And I just want to add, though, I know we're going to be looking for a firm who can do this, but for me, it's important for us to, as a group, to really think about the future and where we want our business to go, where we want this to go, because we need to hire the CEO for 5 years from now. Essentially, we need to hire somebody who can get us there, and to do that, we need to think, where do we want to be in 5 years, because that's the person we're going to need to hire.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go on to the next phase, which is the recruitment phase. And these are activities that the search firm will assist us with during the recruitment phase. Okay, the first bullet is screening potential applicants for the position, identifying those meeting minimum qualifications, following up with telephone interviews to clarify each applicant's credentials, and then staying in touch with the committee on their screening activities. Let's see, assisting candidates with submitting an appropriate application. Sometimes that can be helpful, or there's questions about that from candidates. Requesting that demographic voluntary self-identification to assist us with the diversity of the pool. Providing us a list of candidates with the most promising qualifications, and talking with us about the diverse qualities of the pool, giving us written summaries, conducting in-depth reference checks, and we can work with the succession committee on what that means in terms of a reference check at this first stage when we're identifying candidates to interview. Throughout, monitoring the diversity of the candidate pool, helping us design and finalize the actual interview process itself, coordinating candidates' participation in interviews by assisting with travel arrangements and other things like that. Let's see, and again, meeting with the committee and the staff as needed to go through this process. So that's the actual recruitment phase itself. Are there any questions or comments that y'all want to make about that? Some of the comments that y'all made earlier apply to this recruitment phase, and we'll be sure and carry them through to that phase also. Any comments on this set of?
I can just add one thing.
Okay.
I think it's great that we want to talk to our staff to see whom they would like to see in the position of leadership. But I think it's even more important in light of the changing demographics of Texas and Central Texas and Travis County, that we perhaps maybe survey the population, maybe if we have a meeting, and ask our Travis County constituents, our Travis County patients. There are plenty of people who are concerned and have seen the trends that have occurred, the demographic trends that have occurred in Travis County long before some people in leadership positions may have noticed it. And so I personally would like to see our population included in that, at least have an opportunity to be able to submit what they would like to see in a leader or a CEO for Central Health.
Okay. Yes, we have as part of our process community and stakeholder input on the values and competencies that we're looking for, which is what you're speaking to.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have another conversation to get into more details about exactly what that looks like and how we can do that. We need to consult with our staff some on how we might develop that. We can also talk to the search firm about how we might develop that. But absolutely, that needs to be part of the process.
And personally, since we're talking about the CEO for Central Health has various hats to wear, and including managing what we end up doing with Sendero and community care, and how we participate in the Travis County mental health entity that they're trying to set up right now. So it might be also good to make sure that the candidates potentially have had those kinds of experiences in managing other than just a healthcare district or an entity that provides resources or services to our indigent or targeted populations. Thank you.
Okay. We will take plenty of time to talk about what we actually want to see on the CEO competencies. That'll be a later activity for us. So let's turn back now to, not seeing anybody else. Okay. Let's turn back now to the post-recruitment phase. And this is, again, the scope of work for the search firm, what the search firm will be helping us with. So we'll debrief. They'll debrief with us. And, at any phase of this process, consider additional candidates if we need to. They can notify applicants who are not selected. If requested, and I'm not certain if we'll want to request this or not, but if requested, they may help us with negotiating offers of employment, which I've seen done occasionally just as a threshold. In other words, if we know there's something we want to vet, not to actually negotiate the contract, but to say, if there's a non-starter or something for someone, they can help us identify that. There's an item here that we may have to check with legal on to see if this is possible or not, but it has to do with, I've seen this done in other places where a search firm will guarantee placement of the position for 12 months, beginning on the appointment start date. Now, what that means is that if a place candidate's no longer employed during that first 12 months, it just means that the search firm will come back and work with us and conduct a new search with no additional retainer. So that's what is meant by guarantee, just that they will work with us again. And that only applies if the candidate left for reasons other than something that Central Health initiated. In other words, if we change the position in some way, like the job duties, that guarantee would not apply. So it seemed to me that was a good thing to include. I've seen it included elsewhere. Okay, and then the last thing is just the search firm will need to maintain all the documents according to our retention schedule. So, okay, so that's all post-recruitment phase. Any questions or comments related to that aspect? Dr. Bell.
I want to go up maybe and get a clarification of the two documents, okay?
Okay.
So we have that the process is going to include community and stakeholder input on desired CEO values and competencies, but I don't see it in the scope of work.
Okay.
So, and maybe it's here and I'm just missing it, but I think we'd have to specify that we want them to assist us with that.
Okay.
As a part of their scope.
Okay. We can add that, and you're right, it's not in here.
Okay.
So, and we would want them to help us. I think it may be in here helping us design, but not actually assist. So, and it may not be in here actually. So that's a good catch. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to, because I understand the difference in the two documents,
Yeah.
but the process document is not really going to the search firm. That's really our
Right.
issue, the committee's issues.
Right.
But this is what we want to hold the search firm accountable to as far as duties that they will perform.
That's right.
Okay.
And it'd be attached to their contract.
Exactly.
So it's important to have that added here. Okay. Other comments, questions?
Yes, this is Amit Moswani.
Okay.
I just wanted to sort of, upon realizing what Dr. Bell pointed out, also maybe just say out loud that the public input at the beginning, or at least there will be there's going to be a community input sort of avenue that's going to inform what those competencies ought to be as well.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll likely be engaging a search firm either concurrently or after that process, or at least complete the engagement possibly with the search firm after that process. I'm not sure. But just wanted to kind of make space for that community input to kind of make sure to transcend or live through the process of the search firm designing those competencies as well. And just making sure that that community input process is sort of bulletproof whenever we move it into the process of the search firm, then codifying and defining those competencies. That's all, if that makes sense. I don't know what the order of operations might be necessarily.
Yeah, that makes sense. What we've got on the table right now is two time frames for stakeholder input. The first one is stakeholder input when we actually write the position. So that's input around what the community and stakeholders are looking for in a candidate. So that's the first step. So that would happen in the, based on what you mentioned, Dr. Bell, and that would happen with the assistance of the search firm, but also with, that's a full board discussion. So we need to make sure the full board it agrees with, and make sure that we have a very open process for people to comment. So there's that. Then the second piece is at the end of the process in terms of stakeholder input with regard to the finalist or multiple finalists, depending on where we are. So we'll have to talk about what that looks like, and there's a number of different ways that can be done. That would come at the end, and that would also be a process that the search firm could assist us with and provide their experience in terms of what they've seen. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So does that, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing any other comments on this. So, so Dr. Bell, there's a question about the next step for the issuing the RFP itself, and a question about whether or not the full board needs to weigh in on the actual issuance of the RFP. So I know I'm just asking you that now. I conferred earlier with council. I didn't get a chance to talk with you about that. So I figured that what we'll do is we'll figure that out between now and the board meeting. If a board approval is necessary to issue the RFP, then we'll make sure that's put on the agenda.
Okay.
Does that make
That'd
sense?
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. We know we need board approval to select the search firm.
Exactly.
This is about issuing the RFP.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move now to. I'm not seeing any more comments on this part, so I'm going to move now to closed session. So let's see. I announce that the committee is convening in closed session to discuss agenda item number 1 under Texas Government Code, section 551.074, personnel matters. So it is May 15th, and the time is 2:34 that we're entering closed. And we are, so is this the beginning of closed session? Okay. Okay, so I need to wait until we, okay.
Access. I appreciate it. I remember in the old days, people got swimming pools, for water therapy. They got this, they got stuff. I'm having to fight just to get a shower chair for her.
Okay. We are ready to begin the open session. It is May 15th at 3:17, and we're entering open session. So we are taking up item number 2, which is to confirm the next regular ad hoc succession committee meeting date, time, and location. So managers, I wanted to open this up for just a minute or two to see if people wanted to express any preferences. We will, we can certainly poll everyone and see what works for everyone. My thought is that we will meet on a monthly basis, that we will meet before the board meeting in case something comes up that we need to send over to the board meeting. My question is whether you all are okay with meeting like this, or if we need to tack on to another committee, if that's easier for folks. If you don't have any, you don't have to express your preference now. We will also poll people, but I wanted to allow some space right now if people wanted to say anything. Any comments, anybody? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, hold on just one second. We have, go ahead. Yeah,
thank you, Chair. I really, again, I'm not part of the committee, but
that's okay.
I do. But sometimes, and here, the chair of the Strategic and Planning Committee is here, sometimes they're really dense and long. I just want other board members to be mindful. And this item is also lengthy and long, so can people afford to be out for an extended time period? So that's the only thing I want to say.
That's a good point, and that's one of the things I was thinking of why we might want to just keep it separate. Manager Valadez, did you have a comment?
Yes, I agree with Manager. I've got my daughter over here making noises at me. No, I agree.
Okay.
I like this committee for it to remain a separate committee.
Okay.
Meeting not tied to our board, which can be lengthy. And one more thing, I'd also recommend that if maybe in the initial stages until a consultant firm is agreed upon, and the language, everybody agrees with the language that's going to be put into the RFP or RFQ, however they decide to do it, maybe you should have more than one meeting a month, in light of the fact that Mike's given us a specific timeline, and taking a month to do this and a month to do that and a month to do this. We already know the community meetings can be done, and for the public initially, that can already be put on a schedule. And it shouldn't be so difficult because, I think the Central Health has been very successful in having those meetings here at Central Health offices. And two, I think it needs to be a little bit accelerated, at least until the consultants are hired, so that we can, like I said, more efficiently move forward with the selection process. Mike knows what he needs to do, but he'd be much freer to move faster if we have a consultant agreed upon with the parameters of the contract. And that's something we normally would see. I would hope that y'all would want to see that language before the contract goes out. And you don't want to wait a month for that to happen. That's just my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. We will move expeditiously and meet as often as we need to, and we will poll everyone. So, okay, go ahead, Dr. Bell.
I just want to say in comment to Manager Valadez's comments, you can always call a special call meeting.
Yes.
So in essence, at any point in time, if you feel that there's something that needs to be done, you can call a special call meeting and have the committee meet, vote, and then it can go before the board and happen.
Okay, great. That's a good reminder. All right, so I am ready now to accept a motion for adjournment.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have something else? Go ahead.
It's not related to this. Is that okay? Just announce it to the board. To follow up on an email. That's it.
It's for another committee meeting.
Okay. Is it okay?
As long as you're okay.
Just
okay.
No, it's just a really brief announcement. Board members, if you can please follow up with Brianna's email. She sent a reminder as well. So, and if you do not have any questions, just reply no questions. Thank you.
Manager Winston?
Yes, I move that the first meeting of the selection committee be
Adjourned.
adjourned. Be over.
Do I have a second? Second from Dr. Zamora. Thank you, Dr. Brinson, Dr. Zamora. All in favor of adjournment? I think it's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. All right, we're done.
All right.